All right, guys, welcome to week 2, day 2 of IS50A game development. Before class began, I started with a demonstration of Rocksmith. Rocksmith is it's a game, and it's a game, and it actually has arcade games. It's got games within a game that teach you how to do different techniques in guitar. But what's really neat about it is rather than using a game controller, which is what most Guitar Hero, Clone Hero, Rock Band type games use, you actually just get a real electric guitar, right? And you get a USB cable coming out of it, and you run that into your computer, and that's it. So all you need is they do sell actual Rocksmith real tone cables, but they're garbage. They break so easily and they're expensive. They're like $30 each. All you need is a $10 USB cable that hooks up your electric guitar to your computer or PlayStation or Xbox, and then you can actually instead of hitting buttons on the frets, which is what you do with Guitar Hero, and there's only 5 of them, right? Unless you have the Pro controller. With Rocksmith, you actually have to play the right notes on the right strings, and it will. Yeah. Let me unlock the lecture for you. Thank you, sir. There we go. Okay, please switch over to the IS50A lecture room. So we are now in session. But it's a really interesting thing to talk about here in lecture, because it's a game that actually teaches real life skills. Guitar Hero doesn't really teach you to play the guitar, right? Because all you do is you just do this on the little controller in the middle, and there's only 5 frets that you put your fingers on. There's no chording. There's no. It's maybe it'll teach you rhythm or something like that, but Guitar Hero really doesn't teach you to play the guitar. But Rocksmith does. Rocksmith actually does gives it, they've got lessons in there, and then they've got these games within a game that Ninja Slide and things like that that teach you techniques. Like this would be if you want to learn how to do slides on the guitar. It looks like a little old arcade game, and so you play and you slide to the whatever fret, and if you do it right and time it right, then you get points. So he's sliding the 4th fret, the 1st fret, the 5th fret, 2nd fret, then he switches strings. Now he's got to slide on the blue string. This is the 3rd string down, 5, 1, 5, 3, right? And so it has it's the reason why I mentioned this is because gamification is a really big thing these days. I mentioned it probably in our first class, but gamification is the notion of is like serious gaming is another term that people sometimes use for it. So gamification is everywhere these days. Most of the Fortune 500 companies are interested in doing gamification of some sort or another. McDonald's Monopoly game is kind of the most famous one of these. They've been doing it for years, where eating at McDonald's is playing a game. Not a very good game. Starbucks, they have the Starbucks app, and during winter time, every time you eat at Starbucks, you get a free pull on a slot machine. Again, not a very interesting game. But Rocksmith is interesting, and the reason why it's interesting is because it's a game. You get scores, and you unlock things and new skins and things like that. Your standard game progression for these days. But it also actually teaches you a valuable skill. Well, I don't know how valuable playing guitar is, but it's a real skill, right? It'd be like if somebody made a woodworking game where it actually, you actually have a real, hammer and shaving wood off, and it's like combo bonus, and you like turn the thing and and it's like 10 times, excellent job, The strings hurt you too much. My hands have a hard time developing calluses, I guess. I play violin, and so that part didn't really bother me. There's a lot of weird similarities between violin and guitar, really. The right hand technique is totally different, but the left hand's somewhat similar. Although on violin you don't chord, nearly as much as you do on the guitar. So it's a really neat thing, and like I mentioned earlier, for me, my ideal music game would be Rock Band, but with real instruments, right? So like Rock Band has Rock Band 3, not Rock Band 4. Rock Band 3 was better. Has keyboard, drums, vocals, multiple vocals, including harmony, keyboard, drums, guitar, and bass. And so you could easily have 7 people, I think, in a band together at the same time, either in person or online, using their online mode, making music together, which is a really fascinating thing. Rock Band works with real drums. I have an electronic drum kit and an adapter to make it work, and so it's a real electronic drum kit, and it works perfectly well with Rock Band. And the Pro mode in Rock Band was left in for drums, and so that's 4 drums that you can hit, and then the cymbals up top as well, and the kick. And so there's like you got to use all the all 8 things or whatever to do it. Violin, you don't have to. Yeah, chording is hard for me, especially my hands just don't fit a lot of the shapes very well. But I'm learning, getting better. I'm still terrible at it, as you can see from me playing it, but getting better. It's fun. It's fun for me. And so my daughter is like super into like heavy metal and things like that. So my Christmas present to her was actually the drum kit, and so she likes playing drums, and so. We fire up Rock Band, and she'll sit there and hit the drums in time with the music, and she likes singing as well, and so she can play the drums and sing, and I'll play the little guitar hero guitar. Because unfortunately, Rock Band used to have support for the Pro mode guitars, which were more closer to a real guitar, and you had to play chords and things like that with them, but they removed it from Rock Band 4. So in terms of serious gaming, and the reason for that was because Rocksmith was basically doing what they wanted to do. And so they just gave up and just went back to the plastic controllers. So that's the reason why I mentioned this, is because when you guys are going to be doing your project, you can think about doing serious gaming. It doesn't have to be like a time waster in search of frivolous pursuits. No, it doesn't have to be just a game. Like, you can do serious gaming as well. You don't have to if you want to make a game. I play video games. That's the thing I do. But the hurdy-gurdy, nice. Yeah, hurdy-gurdies are pretty cool. But if you're interested in teaching something using gaming, that's really powerful. I just submitted a grant this morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, to the Federal Department of Education. That if it funds, it'll be a kind of a serious gaming kind of thing. So, and there's actually good evidence that it works. The kind of the top educational agency in the country says that serious gaming, gamification for teaching history and things like that is actually very effective. So, I thought you were gaming late at night. No. There was no gaming yesterday. I was working till 6 o'clock in the morning getting this grant out the door, which is why I'm tired right now. Okay. So, for people who hate playing the violin but love the sound, the hurdy-gurdy, yeah. The hurdy-gurdy has this droning sound to it. I don't know what this has to do with gaming, but hurdy-gurdy. It's like got a wheel that turns that plays the notes or sounds. It sounds the strings for you. There was a really good hurdy-gurdy song that I liked. 5 Slipknot riffs on hurdy-gurdy. Okay, I gotta hear this. I'm sorry. Yeah, whatever. Now we're getting off topic. Okay, so all right. So what are we going to talk about today? First of all, let's take a look at your snowman. So let's come over here and look at your snowman. I'm going to play Clone Hero now. Thanks, Kearney. Amazon.2. So Dolan has posted something on Amazon. USB Guitar Hero. Yeah, I think that might actually be the one I have. that looks pretty damn similar. I think that might actually be the one. The one thing I don't like about it is that it's a straight 1/4 inch adapter instead of an angled one, so it kind of gets in the way when you're sitting. But that's the only downside to it. Okay. New audio device detected. No. Oh shoot. That's what cost me my audio last time. And make sure that. Okay, good. Streaming has not been affected by it. It counts as an audio input, and so I've recorded multiple lectures where Discord or the streaming software was like, new mic detected. I'm going to switch to it automatically, and it's recording off my guitar rather than off my mic. Okay, gonna go play Clone Hero now. Thanks, Carney. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. And yeah, so my ideal serious gaming game would be a game that works with real drums, real guitar, real bass, has a mic input, keyboard input, and basically does Rock Band, but for realsies, like a combination of Rocksmith and Rock Band. And I know I've talked about that before, but like, I don't know, I'm just fascinated with that notion. That's not the grant that I submitted. The grant that I submitted was to use deepfake technology. Have you guys heard of deepfakes? To teach history, right? So, for example, MIT made a deepfake of Nixon reading a speech that he never read.
The man who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace.
So he had a speech prepared in case Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, who just turned 91 today, died on the moon, and he never gave the speech because they survived. But what MIT did was they used deepfake technology. I don't know if you guys saw that. It looks pretty good. It's a little blurry.
The men who went to the moon to explore in peace
Sounds pretty good too.
will stay on the moon to rest in peace.
And so somewhere in here they show you how the actor's doing it, and then it maps that to Nixon's face, and then of course there's Sassy Justice. I don't know if you guys have seen this. So the South Park people have come out with a new show called Sassy Justice, in which they use deepfake technology to make Donald Trump there, and then you have Mark Zuckerberg as the dialysis king of Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I mean, it looks pretty damn good, right? Like, it looks pretty amazing. So the notion of the grant that I submitted was to have an app that would actually realistically generate a historical character. We were doing Ben Franklin, and the students could talk to it and interact naturally with it, and it would look like a real Ben Franklin. We actually have a Ben Franklin reenactor on board, and we 3D scan him, and we have historians on board and stuff like that. So I think it's a pretty cool thing. It's serious gaming. Okay. Yours froze a couple times. Deepfakes are interesting. Now they have fake voices. Yeah. If you look at the Sassy Justice series, they have some pretty realistic. Some of them are obviously fake, right? But some of the voices are computer generated and sound really, really close to how people talk in real life. So, yeah, that would keep students engaged. Yeah, that's the idea. It's student engagement and learning, right? Because like if you're learning about the American Revolution, who better to learn it from than the guy that was signed all of the founding documents, right? Declaration of Independence, Constitution, Treaty of Alliance with France, and the Paris Peace Treaty at the end of the Revolution. Ben Franklin, he was the only guy who signed all four of them, and was very influential in all that. And him just talking about it to me is like way more interesting, and I think students will learn a lot better from the guy that did it than from reading a textbook. Nicolas Cage, yeah, maybe we'll put Nicolas Cage's face on there. Let me tell you about the time I stole the Declaration of Independence. I started these riots in the Capitol, and all right. So let's. Yeah, that's what I was doing. So let's take a look at the snowman. So. So Dahlin has a giant-cheeked snowman. It's pretty amazing. It's got like water lilies or something in the background. It's like melting or something. Is that what's going on? It's got a hat. It's well done stuff. I posted this as my reaction to it. Then Maine's got a classic T-posing snowman with buttons. Nice. Yeah, I like it. This poor guy melting. I'm not really sure about the hat there, Pellegrino. Then Lave has got a techno metal snowman, which is pretty cool. Ooh, nice ribbon around the... Nice, very nice. Very cool. That's awesome. So you took the text tool and, yeah, that's really cool. Presents. Very cool. All right, yeah. Did concrete just like mine, yeah. Discount Frosty, little hat. It's a very sad hat. Very sad hat, mint curly. Frosty couldn't afford the good, what was it, old straw hat, was it? Old, they put on his head and he began to dance around. Leal looks like a, yeah. Kind of reminds you of like birds, like, kind of looks like a little sparrow or something. Span has got the T-posing Frosty. Gross has a jaunty hat on it and a face. Ramos is sticking the tongue out. Nice. And a two-colored hat. It's very cool. Very cool. All right. Yeah. Munkers. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll put the points in once class is over. I hope you guys had fun with that. It's I don't know what that is, but it's funny. Okay. I don't get the reference stuff, but those aren't cheeks. Oh, I see. I gotcha. I get the reference now. All right. It's a snow woman. I gotcha. Okay. So let's do a little bit of lecture. It's even more funny. A little bit of lecture on Unreal Engine. So you guys know that next Tuesday you have to finish playing the game with your students and write a 1 to 2 page essay on really, what I want you to think about is really what sets this game apart, what really sets it unique, what it does differently, what's compelling, what's interesting about it, because that's what you always need to be looking for when you design and make games. That's the ticket to success. Okay, so this, I could probably just stream the video. Yeah, maybe I'll switch the stream over on this. So this, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play this video for you, and I'm going to pause it from time to time. This is a demo video for Unreal Engine 4, which talks about different aspects of technology in it. And let me switch the streaming on Discord for you guys to it. Change windows. That way you'll get the audio of it there. Are you guys all seeing the white screen right now? Okay. And so one of the hardest things about game development is that it's just such a big field. There's so many things you need to know. There's so many techniques and tricks and little hacks and all this kind of stuff that it's a massive field. It's really like, its own field of study, as big as, literature, or maybe not as big as literature. Literature's been around for longer, but like movie making. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, there's a lot of stuff that goes into making a movie, right? Even just like, and not even talking about like the special effects and acting and things like that. Just like for the director to think about how to frame a shot. Like, that's a whole thing. Like, how do you frame a shot so that you don't have something like this where you have, like, you see the line coming up out of my head here? This is called a vector in filmmaking terminology, and you wouldn't want to have a character with a vector coming up out of their head like that. Maybe. Depends on what effect you're trying to achieve, I guess. But it's a whole area of study, and game making is like it. It has its own terminology, it has its own lingo. As you develop experience in it, you get better and better at it. It's its own thing. And so what I'm going to show you guys here is I'm just going to kind of play this video, which is a cool little video about a kid chasing a kite. And I'm going to stop it and kind of explain the lingo, because there's a lot of lingo. It just throws out words, and if you've never done game development before, then none of it will make any sense to you. And so I'm just going to pause it and kind of explain what it means, and why it's useful, and things like that. So it's a 2-minute long video. It'll take longer than 2 minutes, because I'm going to just kind of use this as like an intro to the world of game development and like all the different things that people think about when they're developing games. Okay. Running 100% in real time. So What that means is that this is not pre-generated. If you've ever seen any of the Pixar movies, they spend all night maybe rendering one frame of the movie. It's probably not quite that bad, but they spend hours and hours doing ray tracing, all this other stuff to create as realistic a shot as possible. Like in Monsters Inc., they were simulating every hair on Sully's body, right? I went to a talk. A guy at Pixar came to the San Diego Supercomputer Center, and they talked about the supercomputer essentially they built to do all those calculations and how they were simulating the patches of hair and having the hair interact with the hair and having wind below it and all this other stuff. Very complicated. Can't do that in real time. Real time means you're playing a video game and it's just running. You don't get a chance to pre-render everything. Okay, because a lot of criticisms of demos like this is that you spent 30 hours making a 2-minute long movie so that it looks good. Ew, that is a gross looking Sully. So some things I'd like to point out is that they've got landscaping, very, very nice landscaping here. We're going to learn about landscaping this semester. So they've done a really good job creating the landscaping back here, and it actually looks fairly realistic. Like this looks like the lens is a little blurred right now, deliberately. But this could almost come from real life, right? They actually went to Scotland and scanned Scotland or the Isle of Skye or something like that to get these assets into the world. So this is running in real time though. So it's running at 30 frames a second. I think their demo machine was like really nice. Like I think the demo machine for this was like SLI top tier video cards because it was an E3 demo and they wanted it to look good. PBR. So you're going to hear the term PBR used a lot nowadays and in this class. So PBR, physically based rendering. It's not Pabst Blue Ribbon. Pabst Blue Ribbon is a beer that sponsors the Clovis Rodeo. It is not physically based rendering. Completely different. So, so PBR is how we do materials these days. Back in the day, back when I first took my class in this, 97, when you had a material like the kite material here, you would set its color, how shiny it was, kind of two different ways, and how transparent it was. And that's it. And so basically everything looked like various kinds of plastic. And with PBR, you can actually set the physical properties of an object. So you can say, is it metallic or not? Is it, is it rough? Is it... And so you actually pass in sort of the physical properties of the material, and then the rendering engine itself will figure out what color should be drawn at every point. It's similar to what I used to do, but better, better, and it can create things that aren't plastics like metals, right? If you turn the specular highlight up, I guess you can get a metal. But the old way of doing things had a really hard time doing anything that like flesh. Like flesh was really hard for the old system. So physically based rendering doesn't have anything to do with these physics that you saw there, like the string breaking. Has nothing to do with PBR. PBR is simply the notion of being able to design a material by setting the physical properties of it. How metallic is it? How rough is it? That kind of stuff. 100 square miles of terrain, pretty impressive. I think most of it is probably underdeveloped, but they did a really fantastic job creating a landscape here. This is Heather, from Scotland, I think. Ray trace, distance field, soft shadows. So you can see that the distance fields are used for the landscaping. You can see there's nice shadows over here and things like that. It's a very nice effect. You can see the clouds and the mountains are casting shadows on each other and stuff like that. Full scene HDR reflections. So HDR means two different things, unfortunately. HDR means two different things, unfortunately. The term that it's mostly used in these days is with televisions. So if you have a 4K HDR TV, that means that your TV usually has 10 bits of color instead of 8. So with 8 bits of color, in other words, if your red values have 8 bits, that means you have 256 possible values of red, which isn't a lot, actually, if you think about it. Like, if you were to try and fade from pure red to black, you would see it flickering as it went through all 256 steps of red. HDR TVs have oftentimes 10 bits of color, which means they have 4 times as many colors as a standard high def TV. That's what HDR means in like the television world or the monitor world. The meaning of HDR in video games oftentimes, though, has to do with the exposure of the scene. So like so Half-Life Lost Coast, if you guys ever played that game, it's a little tech demo they made. If you would walk from a dark area into a light area, it would like blind you. You're like, oh, it's so bright. And the screen would literally turn white, you know, and then as your pupils adjusted, then the scene would kind of come back to normal. And then if you walk into a dark area, it'd be all dark, and then your pupils would adjust. That's another meaning of the word HDR. It can also have to do with the, if you talk about HDR in photography, then that's about being able to photograph areas that have a lot of light and very little light in the same thing. And they use techniques like tone mapping that will allow both really bright areas and really dark areas to be displayed without it being blown out. If you guys have ever taken photos before and the sky is just like pure white, that's because it's not HDR. And so HDR in photography oftentimes involves taking a series of shots really quickly, or if you have multiple cameras, having them all take a picture at the same time at different exposure levels. And so one will have a fast exposure where the shutter goes real fast. One will have a slower exposure. The slow exposure one will pick up the areas with low light better. The fast one will pick up areas with a lot of light better. And then the one in the middle will do the midtones. And then it'll digitally combine them into an image that looks good. And our eyes are actually much better at dealing with different levels of light intensity than cameras are. So that's HDR. Missed. I don't know if you guys saw that, but the camera is going to have water splashed on it. High quality motion blur. So you can see when things are moving quickly, it'll blur. And this is oftentimes loved by video game designers and hated by video game players. Have any of you guys seen the options for like motion blur in video games before? Just out of curiosity, like I shouldn't have poisoned the well like that. How many people here like having motion blur on in a video game? Right, you're driving and things start smearing. That's what motion blur is. When things move quickly, you see how my hand turns into a blur here. So in video games, you can simulate that, and there's different like buffers and things like that that are used to create motion blur. And you can turn it up and turn it down oftentimes in video games. You see how my hand's kind of smearing like this? It's trying to simulate that effect. If without it, your hand kind of, every frame it's in a different place. So motion blur makes it look fast. Bacalar makes you nauseated. Mankrelli doesn't mind it. Volave takes frame for my game. Dolan says black. Brado, no. Volition, blur, no. I always turn it down. Blur is horrid. Depends on the game. Yeah, that's usually one of the first things I turn off. I usually turn off chromatic aberration. I turn off film grain, and I turn off motion blur. Just because it just bugs me. In Cyberpunk 2077, I would play around with it, and sometimes I'd turn them back on to get more of a cinematic feel. Film grain simulates like having a actual like film, like how cameras used to have film in them, and so there would be a little bit of noise on them. And so in Cyberpunk 2077, in a lot of games, it would add kind of random colors to it, making it more cinematic in appearance. And I played with that occasionally, but usually I would just leave off. I usually leave it off. Sometimes when driving around town, I'd turn it on, and it'd feel kind of like you're in a movie with like things streaking by and bright colors and the film grain. And chromatic aberration is when you have a bright light and you have a lens, how there's like a little rainbow, like the diffraction of light, it'll simulate that. It's kind of a subtle effect that you usually don't notice, but like if you're looking through a sniper scope with chromatic aberration on the edges, will have like a little bit of diffraction on it simulated. There's options for chromatic aberration. Yeah, it's not every game does it, but a lot of them do. Yeah. Prado, let's put blur on this game that you swing feely and fast. That'd be epic and cool. Yeah, you really don't want it in things like fighting games. Is that what you're talking about, Prado? Where you really need to see frame by frame everything that's happening. It's like, let's just blur it all together so you can't make head or tails What's happening? Spider-Man PS4. Okay. Yeah. Or in fighting games where they let people customize their outfits and things like that, and people just come up with these things and make it impossible to see what move is being done. It's really annoying. Okay, high quality vision. Distance field ambient occlusion. Okay, so this pathway here looks really nice, right? I mean, look. So he's running to the forest over here. So look at that. Isn't that nice? What do you guys think? I think it's nice. You don't have to agree with me. I think it's nice. This was hand put down. So a lot of the world, they sort of dynamically generated. They procedurally planted like 100,000 flowers and plants and things like that. So they wrote a program essentially that would scatter landscaping essentially on the map using algorithms. Like they would say, all right, if it's on a cliff face, don't have a tree growing 90 degrees sideways out of it. So the algorithms were fairly intelligent, and they would scatter patches of heather and things like that, like you saw earlier. This area here was planted by hand. So they went through and they created this sort of cathedral effect with like the pillars and then the leaves being the top of the cathedral. And it's Ramos isn't impressed by it. It's fine. You don't have to like it. And so what is ambient occlusion? Ambient occlusion is sort of like self-shadowing, right? So, you see how my nose is casting a shadow on the rest of my face, right? Oh, Ramos is kidding. Yeah. And so that's another option. If you ever seen SSAO or MBAO or there's lots of AOs. It means ambient occlusion. And so yeah, these are all the different AOs that do this. So it's used for shadowing and things like that. And a lot of times I turn off those options because the shadows they create don't look good. Like Witcher 3, which is normally a pretty amazing game. If you have self-shadowing on, a lot of times they create these like zebra patterns across the cheeks that just look really jarring and really unnatural. So, okay. Two-sided foliage shading model. Okay, so take a look at these leaves. And what do you notice about the leaves? About the light? What do you notice? What do you guys see? It passes through the leaf. Yeah. So normally if you have a box or something in the world, light doesn't go through it. Casts a shadow. But leaves are very thin and leaves are translucent, right? And so what happens is that they have the ability for light to penetrate the leaves. And green light comes through, as it does in real life. And normally we only shade the front side of an object, right? So if you have a light shining on a box, the front of the box, which is to say the face of the box facing the light, the front of the box is lit, and the back side is dark. It's not lit. With this, because they want to simulate things realistically, the light lights both sides of the leaf, and it's a really nice effect. It looks quite natural. It's a lot better than having a green triangle, floating in the sky. 15 million pieces of vegetation. Yeah, like I said, they didn't put most of that. Most of that was not put down by hand. they wrote a program that would sit there and scatter the flowers and things like that, and then for some parts they tweaked it by hand. Water looks decent, I would say, not exceptional. You can see the wind moving the trees there. Temporal anti-aliasing. Okay, so anti-aliasing is something that you gotta know for video games. So anytime you draw a line on a screen, it gets displayed as pixels, right? So pixels are the little squares of color that make up a screen. If you have a 4K, you know, the jaggies, yeah. Have they tried lighting lights in 4 ways? And so anytime you draw a line on a screen, it gets turned into squares. And so those squares have jagged edges, and they don't look good. They don't look good. So there's a whole variety of anti-aliasing techniques that have been around for 40 years or something like that, that kind of smooth out the edges of jagged lines. Temporal anti-aliasing is along the same lines but different. You see, as you move forward, like you see how there's a line of the cliff right there? Like you can see where the edge of the cliff is, and there's kind of a dark line where where there's the mountain behind it and the cliff's in front of it. If you were to move forward towards it, what boxes, what pixels the edge is on will sort of move down in like a stair-step pattern. And it'll actually catch the eye and create these weird patterns that are really noticeable. And for example, if you walk towards a staircase in a lot of video games, it'll look really bad. You'll see like these flickering moire patterns as the edges, as the stairs move from one pixel to another. It creates this really weird, disorienting effect. And so what temporal means time, right? Related to time. And so what temporal anti-aliasing does is it blurs, well, there's different techniques, but it blurs the edge between frames. So if a line was, you know, in one place in one frame and it moved a little bit on the next frame, it would actually blur or use other techniques to soften the transition from one frame to the next. And there's a lot of very interesting ways that people do that. If you want to learn more about it, take IS50B. We're going to be doing anti-aliasing this semester in second semester computer science, or game development, sorry. So temporal anti-aliasing is good stuff. It can cause blurriness, but you don't want to see stair-step moire patterns. AI. So all these deer have the same AI running on them. It's a very simple state machine that says if nothing's happening, just pretend like you're eating the grass that you're on. And then if the camera comes near, do two things. First, the deer will flinch, and then the deer will move away from the camera. It'll run away from the camera. Procedural asset placement, I already talked about that. They wrote a program to place the assets. But watch. It's not noticeable if I don't point it out to you, but the AI on all the deer are the same. Just watch this. It's kind of fun. You guys see that? So when the camera gets near the deer, they go, ah, and they run away. Ah, they run away. Ah, they run away. It's because they have a very simple AI for this demo, because it's only a few seconds. There's no real reason to do more than that. Did you guys see that? The deer flinching. Yep. 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 Dynamic global illumination from height fields. Yeah, same thing. All the lighting back there looks really nice. High quality depth of field. So you can see the motion blur here, right? You guys can see the motion blur on the guy's foot and on his chest and on his knees. The motion blur, of course, indicating what direction the leg and foot and chest are moving in. The depth of field. Ada, can you check to see if the smoothies are here? I heard my phone vibrate, so it might have been delivered. So depth of field is another thing, like chromatic aberration and film grain and motion blur that video game developers love. They love it, and video gamers typically don't, because it's like sometimes it's like, you know, I'm aiming, and I'm trying to see if there's a bad guy over here, but the game's convinced, because I moved my gun down so I could see in that direction, that I'm looking at this rock here. And so the game will focus on the rock. I'm like, no, dude, I moved my gun down because I'm trying to see above my gun, you know? And the reason why depth of field doesn't work a lot is because your eye, I could be looking at the bottom right corner of the screen right now. I could be looking at the top left corner of the screen right now, the top right. The game actually doesn't know where I'm looking. It uses depth of field to try to attract my eye to something, because the way that depth of field works from a cinematic perspective, like if this was a movie, which it is, so it's kind of fine. is that whatever is focused on in a camera shot, and you learn this if you take filmmaking. Filmmaking actually has a lot of really neat parallels to video game development. If you take filmmaking, it'll help you make good video games, to be perfectly honest. And so with this shot here, your attention will be instinctively drawn to that rock in the middle, not to the background rocks. The background rocks are out of focus, so you won't look at them. If they were sharp, you might look at them and take a look at all the rocks. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to look at. But because they use the depth of field effect, it's telling you, it's a hint, it's a very subtle hint to the viewer, put your eye on that rock in the middle there. Watch what happens. Boom. You guys see that? Yep. And then it unfocused afterwards. Okay, you got some more motion blur there. Let me do that again. And see how the camera, it was very subtle, but the camera changed focus onto the kid's foot. See, it's out of focus there, and then watch, it became in focus. You see that? So that's telling you what you should be paying attention to. But it's really annoying in a video game because, like, it's like, no, there's an alien on that rock there. Please don't blur him out. Please don't blur him out. I'm trying to look at the alien that's shooting me. Stop focusing on the shoe. I don't care about the damn shoe. Show me the damn alien. And so there's this disconnect in video games because what you want to look at isn't necessarily what the game thinks you should be looking at. And so it can be very jarring. And so depth of field is typically something that I disable as well. Photometric sampling of real-world data. Yeah, that's what I talked about earlier. The Unreal Engine people, I think, went on location in Scotland in the Isle of Skye, if I'm remembering it right. I could be wrong. I'm often wrong. Fine. But there's something called photogrammetry. No, not here, John. I can't eat an acai bowl in class. Ada, take it away. Take it away. Not here. Take it away. Take it away. Take it away. Thank you. My students don't want to sit me munching on granola for the next 45 minutes. So there's something called photogrammetry. So photogrammetry is it's not really one thing. It's the general notion is of how do you scan things from real life into a computer or into a video game. And so all this stuff here, they didn't actually model. Like, they didn't have an artist sit there and very carefully trace out where the lichen's going to be on the rocks. What they did was they found a cool rock in Scotland, or Isle of Skye, and they took a photo of it. But you see how it's not just a flat, like, picture. This is actually a 3D model. And so they have 3D scanning techniques that they take both high-quality photos and they do a 3D scan of it to create... You see all these little pebbles and things like that over there? And you see how there's, like, just a very interesting... surface on it. They did a really good job, and the kid's face looks bland, but you can see all this stuff. These are all real rocks from real world. Photogrammetry. There's the U.S. Photogrammetry Association. If you want to be a photogrammetrist, you can join it and travel the world scanning things into the computer, which is kind of cool. There's a Epic bought Quixel, which is a company that did mega scans, and they bought them and just made them all available free of charge to everybody who uses Unreal Engine, which is amazing. It's super cool they did that. You can't spell photogrammetry? Yeah. Let me give it a shot. Photogrammetry. There you go. Something like that. All these assets you see here, all the rocks, all the, what was that, a dead log, the lichen, all of this is available free of charge. Every single asset you see in this movie here, you can use in your game. It's pretty cool. Free of charge. Okay, subsurface scattering. Okay, are you guys having fun with this, by the way? Because I know I'm throwing a lot of things at you, but is it reasonably easy for you guys to understand? Like, do you guys understand what I mean by scanning things into the game world? Okay. It wasn't until you saw the kid's face. Yeah. So the kid's face is not realistic, right? It's a cartoony face. But they did something here that makes it more realistic. And so how do they scan it exactly? There's different things. If you have Mount Rushmore, you can't scan it the same way that you can a pill bottle, right? For a pill bottle, you would put it on a rotating turntable, and then the thing would rotate at a constant rate, and then there's a camera that basically records it as it rotates around, and then it generates a 3D representation from it. For larger things, you can get a laser pen, and you can touch the model at different points, and it basically creates a 3D point cloud of all the points of the model, and then you can map a photo of it onto the 3D model. For larger things, you can use depth sensing cameras that shoot out LiDAR that scan the depth that'll return the sort of face of it, and you can walk around it. There's a lot of techniques. It's a really interesting field. This kid looks like the kid from Monster House. Yeah. But anyhow, so subsurface scattering. Subsurface scattering is the notion that light, it's kind of like what we talked about earlier with the leaves. Light doesn't just bounce off most surfaces. Light actually will penetrate a lot of surfaces. Light will, like I talked about in my days in the 90s when I was taking this class, everything looked like plastic basically, or metal. Those were, pool ball. The balls when you play billiards or pool. Like everything looked like that, like shiny, not like skin. Trying to do skin was more or less impossible. And the reason why skin never looked good, why it always looked like you were dealing with like this plastic mannequin of a person, was because we didn't have subsurface scattering. So what happens is that when light hits the kid's cheek here, some of it bounces off, and some of it penetrates through the skin. Skin is translucent. Have any of you guys ever held your hand over a flashlight? Have you guys ever done that? Like you turn a flashlight on, you put your hand over it. You guys know what happens? Nobody? Dolan's typing. Hand glow. Yeah. Okay. So, it's like candling an egg. Yeah. Yeah. So, your bones will still be black, but red light will come through your hand. And the reason for that is because bones are opaque. Bones don't transmit light, like, at all. Maybe a nuclear weapon. Very good lobby. Yeah. So, but flesh is translucent. There's transparent, which means all light goes through. Translucent, which means some light goes through, and opaque, which means no light goes through. And so the trouble was that back in the day, everything was opaque, and it did not look good. Because humans are very, very sensitive to other humans. Like, we have a really well-honed sense of, like, what looks good and what looks natural on a person. And if you ever screw that up, the human brain goes, It's called the uncanny valley. The uncanny valley is when something looks human but isn't human. And we go, And so it's usually a lot better to do something that's like completely fantastical, like a dragon, or like, like in Frozen, Anna and Elsa have these grossly deformed faces, right? All the characters in Frozen, the Disney movie, have these like their faces are just like grossly distorted because if they tried making them look real and failed, then people react in revulsion to it. And so this kid here, I think, is deliberately cartoony for that reason. Even though some of you guys are saying, I don't like the kid's face, right? So subsurface scattering simulates the penetration of light through skin. And so if you look at the inside of his nose, you can see that there's light inside of his nose. And this is despite the fact that there is no light inside of his nose, right? There's no point light, there's no camera, there's no floodlight, inside of his nose generating light. What's happening is that light is penetrating through the flaps of skin on the nose, not the cartilage, but the sides of the nose are translucent. And so light will come through there. And back in the day, we didn't have subsurface scattering. And so what happened is that your nostrils would be pitch black. And it looked really, really bad because nostrils are not pitch black in real life. A little bit of light comes through the skin, the flaps of skin on the side of the nose. And so what people would do when it mattered was they'd actually take very small lights and put them up the person's nose and turn them on so that it would simulate subsurface scattering in those situations where we needed it. That's a trick that you guys don't need to learn now, because all you need to do is click on a checkbox saying, do you want to enable subsurface scattering? And you're like, yes, I do. And then light will it'll just come through. It'll be translucent. And you actually don't experience the uncanny valley, no? Then you are going to be vulnerable to doppelgangers and imposters. Some people hypothesize that the uncanny valley exists because of Neanderthals, right? There used to be 13 different kinds of hominids out there, and ain't none of them now. Ain't none of them now. They all died. There was some interbreeding. Like, most people's DNA has about, was it 2 to 10% Neanderthal DNA in it. Some more than others, you might joke. But yeah, people hypothesize the uncanny valley is this violent, oftentimes, reaction to non-humans that are human-shaped. And so that's why Neanderthals don't exist anymore, because humans are like, look at that thing. That's not real. Alright, so we got a little bit of shadowing going on here. 500 sculpted blend shapes. So a blend shape is a way of combining animations together. Is one way of thinking of it. So for example, one animation you might want to do for a person's face is this. Another one might be this. Another one might be this. And what happens though when you want to combine them together, right? Back in the day when you just had one animation, you'd have to pick an animation to play. I am throwing a baseball. But what if you want to throw a baseball while smiling, right? Then you'd have to make another animation for that. And you'd start getting into all these exponential combinations of animations, right? When they made Mario Brothers, they had to hand animate every single animation frame. Mario's running, Mario's running, Mario's running. He's turning at speed. It's the shot of Mario twisting in place. Dust coming up. With blend shapes, what you can do is you can create one blend shape for the eyebrows lifting, another one for the, startling, smiling, revulsion, and you can mix them together as you will. And so you can mix these things together. It's oftentimes mostly used in the face, but you can use it for other animations as well. And so so you see how they combine different parts of the face moving at the same time, blended in real time. Try and fit music, of course. The home of kites. And I don't know if it mentioned it. Cloth? Did it talk about the cloth? So they have cloth simulations as well in Unreal Engine. You see how this ribbon is behaving realistically with some motion blur on it. So Unreal Engine has a cloth engine. His sweater doesn't look like it's really simulating cloth. But all the ribbons on all the kites up there, definitely are. As you can see, all the different ribbons are being simulated in real time, right?
It's going to try to catch one of the kites and bring it back home.
How are baby kites made? I'll tell you when you're older, lad. If you love something, set it free. Because Unreal Engine's free. Okay. So that is that. Let me switch the streaming screen back. Change windows to screen 2. So was that interesting for you guys? Did you learn some stuff? Learn some terminology? Yeah, there's Mario. Very cool. Yeah. So if you want to get into game development, there's a certain there's a certain amount of vocabulary you just kind of have to learn. Because I go to E3, not E3, sorry. I've been to E3 a couple times. I don't really like it. GDC though, which is in San Francisco every year. I was going to go last year. The school had actually agreed to pay for my travel to GDC, the Game Developers Conference. I go to that. I try to go to that probably every other year. And then the coronavirus happened. And it was really funny because GDC wanted to happen. The GDC organizer were no, GDC is going to happen. And Epic Games pulled out and Apple pulled out and Microsoft pulled out. And so they're making jokes about there was just this sad little kiddie pool that had all that said E3 on the inside of it. And then they finally, or not E3, sorry, GDC on it. And then they finally canceled it. And went virtual. I'm the type of person who turns on every effect. Yeah, and like I said, it's a personal choice. And as long as the game allows me to change it, sometimes I'll play with it and just see what I like better. Then I don't mind. I just kind of mind it when, like, I'm trying to not die in a video game and there's a blur on it, or, you know, the depth of field doesn't let me see it. That's the only time those things are really annoying. So the so GDC is the Game Developers Conference, and when you go there, you will hear lingo. Every field, every technical field, every academic field, every field has its own lingo, right? If you go into construction, you know, the construction workers have their own lingo, and if you don't know the lingo, you will immediately stand out as like not knowing construction, right? Like, what does it mean to have a lap joint? You know, are you talking about my lap? Why are you talking about my lap? And they're like, this is your first day on the job, you know. And so lingo is a way for groups to exclude people that don't belong. That's one way of thinking about it. It's a way of showing membership in a group. And so if you want to get a job in the games industry, it really helps to learn the lingo. Okay? And also, it's nice to know just what exists, you know. Like, now you know about subsurface scattering. I was actually at UC San Diego, where the guy who invented subsurface scattering, there were several authors, but we'll say he was the guy. It's a more dramatic story that way. The guy who invented subsurface scattering was applying to be a professor there. And he gave this really good talk on marble and jade and skin and all this other stuff. And I mean, this is why I know about subsurface scattering. It's because the guy that invented it gave an hour-long talk on it. And then afterwards, he left, and then the professor's like, all right, what did you guys think of his lecturing skill, his technical knowledge, you know, and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of part of the process of how they hired professors at UC San Diego. It's a good system. You invite a guy to come out and give a talk, give a 1-hour talk, and then a lot of the professors show up, and the grad students show up, and undergraduates can come too, and you just sit there and be like, yeah, this guy's a good lecturer. He knows his stuff. Sure, you know. And then that's part of the hiring process. I'm a gamer, and I'm confused by all the terminology myself. I'm not a gamer, and so I appreciate it. Yeah. Either way, it's when you know the terms, then you know things exist. And one of the hardest things in life is just knowing what exists. Now that you know subsurface scattering exists, you know, you don't have to implement it yourself. You just He said there was something about a checkbox, and you just click around, like, oh, there it is. Click it on. Oh, look, it looks a lot nicer now. Oh, that's cool. You know. And so, yeah, if you're planning on working in the games industry, you have to know the lingo. Otherwise, you're just going to look like a total noob. And there's a lot of total noobs applying for jobs in the games industry. And so that's part of it. And then also just knowing these things are good for you because you can use them. Okay. So it took 60 person months, 60, whatever, human. It's short for human. Roughly 60 man months to make with people, with skilled people, like the Unreal Engine people or the Epic Games people have really top flight people. And so that demo took 60 man months, not days, months to make. It's a lot of time they put into that. I mean, they were flying people out on location and scanning stuff, and the animators and the programmers, like that was what, a 2-minute long movie or something like that. So that was, I can still use it for videography and character animation. Yeah, for sure. Like I said, there's a big overlap between gaming and movies and animation, all that kind of stuff. A lot of the techniques are shared. So like I was a comm major in college, area study in college, and so I studied filmmaking and film criticism and how to analyze film, and I didn't take any speech classes. People always think that because I was a comm minor, area study, I did public speaking. Nope. we were focused on television and film, like how to make it and how to analyze it, and that kind of stuff. Shot, study the duration of a shot and how to do a cut properly and how to evoke mood and all that kind of stuff. It's very useful for gaming. Color, lighting, yeah, it's a, you know, how do you arrange things in a shot? Like it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing, and it'll probably help you with your game stuff because a lot of games are very cinematic. Okay, so this link here will go into the backstory and how they made it. And so the point here is that when you're making a game, you're not going to have these kinds of resources, right? That's 1,800 days of effort they put in full time by trained, highly skilled professionals. 1,800 days of effort, right? So you as a person starting off will take longer than that. That's a loser's game. Don't try to compete with the AAA people on the AAA, level, right? You want to start smaller scale, especially when you're making games for the first time. Just do a demo, a little proof of concept. The most important thing of when you're starting off is to figure out, like what we're talking about in our essay, what is going to make your game different and cool and fun. And you make what's called a minimal viable product. You make the smallest possible game that will allow you to experiment with that mechanic. Because after all, sometimes the mechanics don't work out, right? Definitely happened to me. I would have this idea for something, and I'm like, it's going to be amazing, and then I try it, and I play test it, and I'm like, no, there's no salvaging that. That was garbage. That was really bad. And as you get more experienced, your intuition gets better. And my job as a professor is I'm going to look at your mechanics, and you will see me critiquing your mechanics and tell you, based on my experience, and you can disagree with me, that's fine, what I think would make a mechanic better, or what I like, or that kind of stuff. So yeah, pixel games are a good way of starting it, and that's why a lot of indie games have cartoonish graphics, because cartoonish graphics don't require a AAA art budget. I actually went to a talk at GDC called snuck into a talk. I don't think I was supposed to be there. About low poly, how to do low poly games, low polygon count games, and so these very cartoony games. And the upshot that I took away from it was like, we don't have an art budget, so our trees are going to be triangles. Bloop bloop bloop. It's a tree, and there's a cylinder coming out of it. Bloop bloop bloop. Like your snowman, it's 3 spheres. And if you and so since that will look garbage, then you make it cute. And then it's all, look, it's a cute tree, And so that was what the talk was on, was like, okay, so you don't have $5 million to do BioShock Infinite. Let's figure out a way of, making something look cute, not realistic, cute instead. Kawaii, ne? Rather than trying to compete with the Call of Duty ultra gritty realistic, where flecks of sand will spray on their face and... No, you don't have the budget for that. When you're starting off, when you're an indie developer, that's why so many indie developers are 8-bit games and things like that. Okay. So, or what you can do is you can use their assets. You can use all of their photogrammetry stuff, and you can create fairly nice looking stuff. Like, I've been teaching this for, I don't know, 4 years now or something like that. Some students come out with really nice, really photorealistic looking stuff. They just didn't make it themselves. Right? They use the Quixel stuff, and they're like, bloop, bloop, here's some rocks, and they look good. Here's a cliff, and it looks good. And they just use all the scanned photogrammetry stuff, and they put it in. And you can make something look pretty nice without having to do it yourself. Okay, so let's talk about this. So every video game is going to have 3 parts to it. The first is the assets. And I've been using this bit of lingo, and I apologize I didn't define it. Maybe I did. I was talking about the trees, the fallen tree and stuff like that. Maybe I did define it a little bit. I'll define it now. So assets are the art, basically, the art side of things, including things you don't really think of as art, like the GUI. Like, when you play a video game, there's a health bar. That's the graphical user interface, the GUI, graphical universe. That's art. That's the arts. Yeah, if you think about it, it's art. There's design that goes into it. Artistic design and artistic sensibilities go into crafting a good user experience, UX, user experience. Like, you want somebody to sit down in front of your game and look at it and understand what's going on, and they should be able to play the game and understand what's going on. And there's all sorts, that's a whole field. You can get your doctorate in just user experience stuff. And all of these things are their own field. 2D art. I mean, Pablo Picasso. He made a career out of it, right? 3D art and 3D modeling. That I have friends that do that professionally. That's their job. They just make 3D models, and it's there's no but associated with that. That's cool. That's really cool stuff. I have friends that work in Hollywood that, or at least did the last time I talked to them. Who knows what's going on now? Doing like special effects, and so special effects, SFX. That's, visual special effects, audio special effects. That's that's an entire career. You can dedicate your life to making cool special effects for Hollywood. I'm not going to teach you. I'm not going to teach you to do that. Instead, all this kind of stuff with menus and photos and modeling, all that stuff. I am not an artist. I have taken art classes before. I'm not good at it. Instead, what I'm going to recommend for the assets side of things, the art side of things, the things that go into the world are assets. Textures and sounds and pictures and 3D models, all the things that go into a video game are assets. I typically import those. So there's an app store, and you can buy them if you want, but when you go into the Epic Games Launcher, you will see there's a marketplace there, and the marketplace is where you can buy things to put into your game, and you can use them in your game free of charge, which is really, really nice, because otherwise you'd have to pay a licensing fee, right? Every time you sell a copy of your game, you'd have to give a cut to the art people that you license it from. No, there's a lot of free stuff available there, and a lot of the stuff that you buy you can just use for free. So when you go to Unreal Engine and click on Marketplace, you'll see there's a lot of stuff for purchase. Everything under the sun is available for purchase, right? Rope cutting plugins, Ninja, I don't know what Fluid Ninja, probably Fluid Dynamics, liquids and things like that. Let's click on that. I'm curious. Are you not coming up? Are you not loading? What am I missing here? Okay. I don't know what's going on. Stylized water, rain effects, an armored werewolf, The downside is that if you purchase the armored werewolf character and you put in your game and he's your main villain, and then somebody else does also, because it's only $15. Any indie studio can afford $15. Then everyone's like, wait, isn't that the bad guy from Gears of War 7, And everyone's like, yeah, it is, It's a little embarrassing. It's like when two people wear the same outfit to a party, It's like a little embarrassing when you use the same assets as someone else, but it's $15. So you don't have to pay somebody thousands and thousands of dollars to do stuff for you. And free. Look, there's a free section. And so what's really nice is free for the month. And this is something I check every month because it's free just for the month. And so they will do things like discount the werewolf's armor to 0 for the month. And then the price goes back up to 15. And so as long as you purchase it during, why is this thing, oh, there you go. Okay. Maybe that's what happened. I clicked here and then, no, it's just not clicking. Am I too dumb to figure out how to use this? Okay, I don't know. So free for the month. View all free products. This is made under a Libre license, Creative Commons share alike. Yeah, there's a lot of free stuff available. And so what you do is you just add these things to the cart and purchase them, and then you permanently own them. You don't have to download them immediately, which is good, because it would fill up your hard drive real fast. But you purchase them now, and then this thing is just not loading. Look at this. Weird. You purchase them now, and then they're just available. They're in your library. You own them. And whenever you want to make a Western digital town, which normally you'd be able to click on that, and it would show you the assets that you would get for free, which are not loading. I don't know. I give up. Good job, Epic Games Store. Then you can just drag a saloon into your game. So if you're making an indie version of Red Dead Redemption, I would buy that thing right now. There's 9 days left in the month. And buy it, and then it's just in your library, and you can use it whenever you want. You just drag out some tumbleweeds or something, I don't know. So that's what I recommend for assets. Just always check the monthly free stuff, because there's a lot of cool stuff that comes out for the free for the month stuff. and that normally, like that Western Town thing was $65 normally. So the game engine. Okay, so every game has three parts. First is the art side of things, the stuff that goes into the world, the guns, the laser beams that come out, the sound effects, the explosions, the Foley. Do you guys know what Foley is? Foley. Do you guys know what Foley is? Nick Foley, was it the wrestler? Could MP3 or OGG files be used as assets? Yes, but Unreal Engine doesn't import them. Unreal Engine does not import MP3 or OGG files. You have to convert them to WAV. So all audio assets in Unreal Engine 4 are WAV files. At least they were the last time I checked. I always have to qualify myself because there's always new versions coming out, and it's like, oh no, this is possible now. Oh, that's cool. So Foley, anyone know what Foley is? Little running noises. Yeah, like the little, like little sounds that you're walking on gravel, you hear a crunch of gravel, and there are Foley artists. There are people out there whose job it is to make those cool little sound effects that just kind of fill in the texture of a world that make it sound realistic. And they work for Hollywood a lot of times, but there's a lot of Foley artists that work for game companies as well. A friend of my first boss, when I was doing virtual reality game development, he had a friend, and his friend was a really good Foley artist, and so he would do things like, okay, I need to come up with this kind of rushing sound. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my microphone, I'm going to stick it in my toilet bowl and flush the toilet, and capture that sound coming out of it. Then I'm going to run it through my audio filtering program and filter out these, and then pull this out, and then I get this cool sound out of it. And so when you think you're hearing the wind rushing through trees, nope, that's a toilet bowl, And there's a lot of tricks and tips and hacks and things like that. Like if you ever watch videos of how Foley artists work, it is amazing. They'll be shaking bags of beans and beating glass with sticks and all this kind of stuff to get the starting point for their digital manipulations of stuff. It is a real. I've seen the word Foley, 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 like the wrestler. And so Foley, that's a whole thing. Like I said, all these things, like these are entire industries, and I am not going to teach you them. Ain't nobody got time for that. I'm going to teach you guys the basics of making a game this semester, and even that is an almost Herculean and impossible task. Okay, so there's the stuff that goes into your game. Then there is the game engine. So the game engine is the code, the C++ code, in the case of Unreal Engine 4, the C++ engine that takes all the art, like it knows, okay, there's supposed to be a dog 5 meters ahead of me. There's supposed to be a mountain 100 meters ahead of me. There is 3 lights. One is red, one is green, and one is orange. Here, here, and here. And it does all the mathematical calculations. It does all the mathematical calculations saying, okay, well, if there is a white napkin here, and it's being held in front of a monitor radiating this blue color, it should pick up some of that blue color. But watch, as I turn it sideways, it picks up less of it because it's not facing the screen anymore. And so there's a lot of math that goes into it. And the good news is, in Unreal Engine, Zach's globby sounds are made by filling a condom with dog food and beans and smashing it against the wall. That is too funny. Yeah, but that's exactly what Foley artists do. League of Legends. That is too funny. Yeah, they have hacks and tips and tricks. Okay, so game engine stuff we're not going to touch on much in this course. And the reason for that is because Unreal Engine 4 is done for you. There is a large team of very highly trained and professional people, as well as a bunch of volunteers that contribute code to it on the GitHub page, that have built this amazing game engine that allows you to do things like just go bloop and drop a box in, sphere, 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 and it's a snowman. And you can do that without having to write any C++ code whatsoever. It's really nice. Back in my day, we had to write the engine and the game ourselves. And do all the assets. I mean, we contracted with people to do assets, but I had to do some of the assets myself, and you do not want me doing some of the assets myself. I made a spaceship that was literally a triangle. It was a pyramid that I stretched out, kind of pulled a part of it in, so it's kind of an arrow shaped. It's a spaceship. There you go. It's 4 triangles or something. I don't know. 16 prime. It was like really pathetic. And then the part that we're really going to focus on, is the game code. So the game code is actually what makes your game the game, right? Everyone's Unreal Engine's the same, but if you're going to be making Super Mario Brothers meets Predator, then you're going to have to code that, right? You're going to have to code for Super Mario. You're going to have to code for the Predator, and that's a brilliant new idea I just came up with right now. You can use that. It's up to you. I released that into the Creative Commons. It's Mario meets Predator. But you've actually got to code it. So you got to make it so that when you press right, Mario runs to the right. When the Predator shoots Mario, his head blows off. All of the stuff that actually makes your game the game is called the game code. And that runs inside of the engine. And so these 3 different pieces oftentimes have completely different teams working on them. So you'll have the engine team, like at EA, you have the Frostbite people that are working on the Frostbite side of things, and then the people that are using the Frostbite engine to make Mass Effect Andromeda going, bro, please, our people are all bug-eyed. They're all walking around like this, and we can't figure out why. Bro, this is going to be a disaster. Bro, please, bro. And then the engine people are like, sorry, EA just called us to work on FIFA. Peace. Sorry, we just got pulled off to work on Anthem. And then management's like, ship it anyway. And then BioWare releases their first bomb, but not their last. Because their Anthem was waiting in the wings. So we're going to be focusing mostly on game code stuff. Okay, so we're going to be learning a little bit of the linear algebra that goes into the game engine, starting in maybe next week, maybe a couple weeks. We'll see how it goes. But you need to know that because your game code, like if you want to do things, like if you want to make it so that when you shoot a laser beam and it hits a wall and it bounces off, so that would be a cool weapon, right? Somebody's hiding around a corner from you, you shoot this way and the laser beam reflects off the mirrored, like maybe just metal walls can reflect lasers, and they're hiding around a corner. How do you code that? You got to know the linear algebra for it. The linear algebra is not hard. Trust me. If you know how to add, subtract, multiply, I don't even think you need to know how to divide. Add, subtract, and multiply. You'll be good. We'll work through that. Last semester, most of the people dropped when we got to the linear algebra section, which I don't know why. I'll try to make it easier on you guys this semester. Like half the class dropped. No, I didn't sign up to do algebra. I mean, Rivera was busy. Must have been a coincidence that it was when the linear algebra took place. Okay, so what else should we talk about with video games? So most video game companies have a tool chain. They have a process. They have a pipeline. They have different words to describe it. So like, let's say I'm an artist and I make a new frog with a laser gun or something like that model. How do I get that to the people to put it into the game? Put it on a USB drive, walk it over. Do you know how many thousands of bits of art go into a game, right? You need some sort of system. Like, do you have a shared drive, a Dropbox? How do you... What if they check the model and I set the scale of the model to be kilometers instead of meters? What if I use the Unity format instead of the Unreal Engine format? And they need to tell me there's a problem with it. What's the process for them flagging it? It's like, no, dude, you need to change this to be meters, not kilometers. Central server most likely. The answer is, Zach, it depends. Every company has got their own tool chain. They got tooling. It's what it's called, tooling, that will do things like take an artist and then process it and make sure it's converted to the right file format. And maybe we'll generate 2 of them because maybe you're using Maya, which uses one, and you're using Unreal Engine, which uses another file format, right-handed versus left-handed coordinate systems. Maybe we'll generate 2 versions of it, and then every time it gets moved around, it's got to move both versions around. It's a thing. They're tools engineers that do nothing but support people making games. They don't make games themselves. There's a lot of engineers like Blizzard that all they do is support the people that make the games, because it's a very complicated thing. And then finally, you got management. So the management of games is really, really hard. Like, we crapping on, the people at BioWare or CD Projekt Red for not managing the project right. Do you know how hard it is to manage a video game? It is hard. It is really hard to get time. Like, estimating when a game will be done, you don't know. Like, you don't know. With some things, like, if you've done it a million times, like, making a door open, like, yeah, you know how long that's going to take. But if you're trying to do something that's nobody has done before, which is most games, you don't know. Just implementing it the first time is an unknown amount of time, and then after it is going, you're like, oh, this is garbage. We need to fix it. You don't know, and then after you've figured out the game mechanic and got the game mechanic working right, then there's going to be bugs. How many bugs are there going to be? Unbounded. There is an infinite number of possible bugs, as Bethesda and CD Projekt Red have demonstrated so admirably. A game, you never run out of bugs in a game, right? My daughter's playing Skyrim. Skyrim's been out for almost 10 years now, and there's still bugs in it. She went to restore the tree in Whiterun, and it's supposed to replace the big tree with a sapling. Nope, it just draws the big tree over the sapling, so you can't see the sapling. Good job, Bethesda. Well done.
No, actually, it was just the same. It was just a normal tree.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah. So it just looks like nothing happened. Right. Cool. And so management's really hard. And if you think management's hard, dealing with money issues is even harder. How do you get money from people to make a game? That's a whole industry. That's a whole career you can get into. It's called being a producer, right? It's like movie producers are the money guys that make movies happen. Video game producers are the people that make the video games happen. They're not necessarily involved in design. Video game design's another thing. Being a designer, somebody who designs the game system. All of these things are entire fields and entire industries. But like a friend of mine, she's really good at firing people. So she'll get hired by a company to come in there and fire people because they don't want to fire people because they want them to like them. So they bring her in as an axe woman. And she comes in and says, yeah, sorry, you're fired. What? Yeah, you're fired. Sorry. Why? Can't tell you. You're fired. Bye. Sorry. Goodbye. Have a nice day. Thanks for being here. So sad, you know. And she's good at it. So she gets hired by companies just to come in and fire people. All right. Yeah, all this stuff is complicated. We're going to focus on the game code, right? Making your code happen. Okay? Because if you're making tic-tac-toe, how do you make it happen? You have to have the ability to place X's, place O's, detect a victory, detect a draw. That's what is really what video game development's about to me. That's that'll be a controversial statement because the Foley artists will be like, what? It's all about Foley, man. But to me, what makes what really sells it for me personally, my interest, what I love, my passion, is about actually sitting down and thinking about how am I going to implement a game, right? I like the design, and I like the actual implementation of the game logic, right? How do I make a mecha game that will work in outer space? Yeah, that'll be fun. Like just those problems, and how do I make it actually happen in the world? That's that does it for me. That's what I really like. So, happy birthday! You're also fired. Yeah, those are fighting words. Yeah, and some people are really passionate about game engines, and obviously artists are passionate about art. That's why they're artists, right? They feel this burning flame to produce 3D models or something. Yeah, but for me, my burning passion is for the game code side of things. How do you make a laser guided rocket? I did that. How do you make a heat-seeking rocket? I did that too. How do you make AI that behaves, realistically without being OP, without being overpowered? Those are all really interesting. Design, like how do you design an AI that is good, it's fun to deal with, and how do you implement it, right? And that's what we're going to be learning this semester. So that's it for today. We are going to look at your essays on Tuesday. And then after that, and if you want to start thinking about it now, start talking about your groups because you're going to design a board game. So after you guys have kind of identified what mechanics you like and what mechanics you don't like, you can I'll give you the assignment on Tuesday. You don't have to really do it now. But if you just kind of want to think about what kind of board game you'd like to make, then that'll be assigned next Tuesday. Okay? And so you'll have a week to design a board game that's fun. How do you make rapid fire nukes? Did I tell you that story before? I had one trigger that was the machine gun, and I had another trigger that was firing a nuclear weapon. It was like a grenade, kind of like the Fat Boy in Tall Boy, Fat Boy in the Fallout series. It's like this arc tactical nuclear weapon. And the game that I made had one cooldown for your character. And so when you fire a bullet, there would be a 0.1 second cooldown, then you could fire again. If you fire the nuclear weapon, there was a long cooldown. And so you couldn't even fire your machine gun. When you launched the nuke, you were just vulnerable. So if you missed, this is a game design decision. If you missed with it, you're like a sitting duck, right? Like it's a massive, powerful weapon, but if you miss, you can't fire at all, and the other guy can light you up. So it's game design, game implementation. The trouble with the implementation was if you held down both buttons at the same time, the way the game logic worked was that it would fire a nuclear weapon but use the cooldown for the machine gun. It was just bad coding on my part. And so if you held down both triggers, it would rapid fire nuclear weapons. And the really funny thing is that a casino was actually working with us. They wanted us to bring this virtual reality mech combat game with lasers and nukes and things like that to their casino to make it into a casino game. And I was like, that's really cool, because that'd actually be a casino game I would play. With the notion being you kind of run your mecha around. It would be single player. You run your mecha around in this, Neo Tokyo environment, whatever, and blow stuff up. And as you blow it up, letters from the casino's name would appear inside of it. And you collect them. And if you collected all of them, then you'd win $1 million, right? And it was going to be rigged, so you never got the 7th character, right? But what I found was that if you rapid fired nukes, you could clear the entire level very, very quickly, because it's like a fire hose with nuclear weapons coming out instead of water. And so you could literally level the entire city within the time limit. It was a timed event. You'd pay $5 and you'd walk around smashing buildings, and we had pretty realistic destruction on it. Parts of the building would fall apart. You could look into the building. It was actually, I was actually pretty happy with it. And I was kind of joking, like I should leave the bug in there. So if it ever does go into the casino, I can just sit down and go, $1 million, there it is. Or tell my friends about it. For some reason, the casino didn't end up going with it. But that was actually a project that I was working on. It was really fun. A good board game would be a war-based game where you get a roll die to determine how many men or troops get killed. Are you going to be in the same groups for the essay assignment? That was the plan, because none of the groups finished their game, and so I'm kind of doing it this way so that you guys actually finish the game that all of you guys were going to play. And so now that you know the game, just stay in the same group again, unless you hate your group. If you hate your group, let me know, and I can switch things up. But you're going to be in the same group at least through the end of the board game section of it, and then I'm going to poll you guys if you want to be switched up. You can pick your own partners, that kind of stuff. I mostly did random groups or quasi-random groups because it's online and you guys don't know anyone, so you get to make friends, and friendship is magic. You did not?
No, I mean,
your old
like,
groups.
In this game, like, it's just
You didn't make any friends?
Oh, sorry. You fell into the water.
Remember, Prada, friendship is magic. It's the message of Persona 5. Okay. So, yeah, sometimes there's freeloaders in a group. And so after all that, if anybody freeloads, report it to me. And what I did last semester was I put all the freeloaders into one group together. So the people that were just leaning on their partners to do all the work, I put them all in a group. It was really funny. They didn't know I was doing this. And then I gave them an assignment. And then the freeloader group, half the people were forced to do the work. And they got mad, and they were like, "These people are freeloading." I'm like, "Oh, really? Oh, that's a shame." And then those freeloaders I put into a group, and so it was like this single elimination tournament where like I was finding the students that were doing literally nothing in the class and just partnering them with each other to see if I could find who the ultimate laziest student in my class was. You're the champion. You didn't know this, but you did nothing the entire class. You survived the single elimination bracket to become the champion freeloader. and I did that because I wanted to isolate freeloaders from people that were actually working on the class, because it's not fun. Hey, when can we meet to work on our video game? Dead silence. That's not fun, right? So I do like having random partners and things like that. But if people are just not going to be working on things and freeloading, then they get isolated and put into their own section of the class, so they can all try to freeload off each other and have nothing happen. So you're the weakest link. Goodbye. Yeah. So now you know my strategy. So It was really funny to me though, listening to the people that were freeloading on the previous assignments complain about people freeloading off them. There was a certain amount of schadenfreude. That I'll admit it. I was kind of amused by it. Okay, so yeah, we're over time. So thanks, you guys. It's a fun class. I hope you learned things. A little bit of the lingo, a little bit of the terminology, and just giving you a little bit more familiarity, kind of with the game development industry as a whole, because it's a big industry, big subparts. The subparts are big. You know, there's a lot to it. But we're going to be focusing on this. We're going to be focusing on game code. Why? Because that's what I know, and that's what I love. Teach what you know. Teach what you love. That's what they say. Okay. So, peace out, you guys, and I will see you guys on Tuesday. Have fun playing games.